Greetings, Keishlings. I'm here with another Unordinary power-up video. Today we're doing Remi, Queen of Wellston High School, aka X-Ray, during her vigilante days. Ability Lightning, level 5.4. With all my power-up videos, I do equipment, general power-up concepts, and super moves. The first piece of equipment is the Staff of Mjolnir. Obviously the name is derived from Thor's own hammer, Mjolnir. This is a Warhammer polearm. Solid metal, it's a few inches taller than Remi herself, and it breaks down into 3 segments so that it's easy to carry and conceal. But its main purpose is to kind of help supplement her melee damage, because that's one of the weaknesses of her lightning ability, is that like if someone has high defense, her shocking and side effects of burning don't really have as much of an effect. So having this giant metal hammer to channel her powers into and just whack people with it definitely would supplement that blunt damage. Next is the Magpulse gloves and boots. These are a custom pair of gloves and boots that have like metal plating on them and some copper wiring throughout, so that they, when channeling her electrical powers into them, they conduct the same principles of electromagnetism. So this would allow her to repel metal objects or attract them, such as her hammer, another Thor parallel. But with the boots, she could, jump really high by repelling from metal surfaces, or she can attract herself using like her hands and feet to be very much like Spider-Man when he wall climbs. And yeah. Next is the general power-up concepts. The first being defibrillator. Okay, a defibrillator is to help bring someone out of cardiac arrest. The whole like, clear! Well, Remi could simulate this by channeling her powers into her hands, and then, just kind of keeping with the consistency, clear! And there you go. While this can also harm, given certain levels of voltage, this is another possibility. She could resuscitate a person, or she could temporarily put them in a form of coma, almost, with the effects of cardiac arrest, disabling them for a time until the authorities arrive. So yes, this one helps as much as it harms, but if she learns the right voltages, she possibly won't kill anybody, which I'm sure is completely against what she would want to do. Next is arc welding. This is a different kind of welding done through the form of high voltage electricity instead of like traditional like gas powered welding torches. So, basically same principle, it's like a solder that you'll like kind of, when you're doing like computer soldering work and everything, it's very similar to that. You get like a little metal rod, and then you just kind of like melt it, and there you go, you weld it. Well, with her powers, she could generate this a lot more and just kind of straight weld things like a more of a traditional blowtorch. Like say she's trying to trap people in, say, a warehouse. She could weld metal doors together at their seams, grab some scraps of metal and weld them over the seams so that they hold, or using like her enhanced strength from her like electrical body enhancement, she can take like a piece of rebarb and like kind of like bend it by heating it up, and then weld the two ends together around a doorknob or something, or around the door handles. Next is Crosstalk Generation. This crosstalk is simply an unwanted like signal that's being transmitted to a channel or circuit that is not the intended destination. And it's like, given that like she can pick up on electrical signals and stuff from devices, I thought this would be a natural progression. She could pick up on like maybe some radio signals and stuff from various devices, especially like when she was doing vigilante work, which is when this idea came to fruition. She could like maybe pick up on the radio frequencies and such of the like walkie-talkies and stuff that Ember operations are using, and then she could gain some intel, coordinate her vigilante work along with maybe some allies or whatever, or at least give the information to hopefully the authorities. But as we know, the authorities seemingly are not uncorrupted in this way, given recent chapters. But yes. But anyway, moving on. Next is Electromagnetism. Basically, similar thing with the Magpulse gloves and boots, except this is just her doing it in general. Like, say she makes like electromagnets and like, to hold stuff in place, or she essentially becomes like a pseudo weaker version of Magneto from the X-Men. Very Marvel inspired power-ups, I'm starting to realize. But yeah, essentially all the effects of electromagnet she could do through various metals around her. She just has to create the magnet polarities and stuff using her powers. Next is weather manipulation. Yes, we're continuing with the Marvel themings. Basically, by channeling her electricity into, like, say, low-lying clouds, she can simulate the effects of a storm, producing rain and lightning. I thought it's more of a stretch than some of the others, but I thought it was a fun idea regardless. Next up is Static X. Basically, this attack is named in honor of her brother Ray's vigilante name, X-Static. This is a short to mid-range attack where she builds up electricity in her arms, she crosses them over, and then she can either deliver a cross chop to do physical damage while doing electrical damage as well, or she can do this from a further distance away, and kind of like as she cross chops, it's like creating like two crossing electric whips hitting the target or anything else she's trying to hit. Next is Tickle Sparks. This one is kind of inspired by Jubilee from the X-Men in a way, where she like uses low voltage, the high ones might kill somebody, the low voltage like sparks of electricity, which then stimulate the muscles of a target, making them twitch uncontrollably and making them easier to handle. So it's a very easy way to restrain someone for a time. Next is Thunderdome. This is utilizing the Staff of Mjolnir, where she like channels some power into it and like taps it on the ground, and it arcs off of the top of the hammer, creating a electric dome cage that adds a little bit of defense for herself and for anyone within its perimeter. Next is Arc Lightning Strike. This is where she just basically forms like a little electric bolt and fires it off and lobs it in an arc at a target. Next is Chain Lightning. She fires off a surge of electricity, and then from there it starts arcing, as electricity does, off of various forms of metal in the area. She could do this in a very interesting way as like a trick shot, because it's very unpredictable because of how lightning arcs off of stuff. But if she learns the patterns of it, she could possibly defeat or at least kind of like encase people in a large area if there's like a lot of metal around. So it can be an offensive or a trap move as well to many of the targets in said area. They wouldn't be able to, counteract against it as well because of its unpredictable nature. But if she knows, its effectiveness goes up through the roof. Next is the Zeus Spear. Basically, just like the Greek god himself, she forms a mighty thunderbolt, and then from there just lobs it like a spear, and there you go. Strikes down her foes. Next is Stormbringer. This, she sends a bunch of electricity up into the nearby clouds, and from there it converts them into thunderclouds, allowing like a bit of a thunderstorm to start producing in the localized area. This is a setup move for something that comes a little bit later. Okay, basically, next is Thor's Divine Protection. She generates so much electrical energy and then forces it into herself. and then it kind of creates like a pseudo armor of electrical lightning energy, giving her a defensive boost and offensive boost for, physical attacks. And finally is Thor's Judgment. This is where Stormbringer comes into play. She sets that up with Stormbringer, and then after she converts, all the thunderclouds and the storms all going, she uses the electricity in the clouds to channel it down into her hammer, and it just kind of strikes it as like a lightning rod, and from there she now has a supercharged hammer and then can just go boom, boom, just wailing away at any given target. And that is about it for Remi's power-up videos, or Remi's power-ups for this video. Let me know what you thought, any ideas you've had for Remi. I'd love to hear them. And but anyway, check out my other content, see what you like, suggest things for the future. Links down below for all my social media so you can keep up with my content and have ways to contact me. I stream on Twitch where I do gaming, and I'll tweet out when I go live, part of the One Punch Man podcast on Grim Reaper's channel, so go check that out. And as always, thank you for watching, like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, Quiche-lings, come to me, Mjolnir.